The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with the grace of a falling brick. Ambassador Krell gripped his seat as the primitive human vessel shuddered and bucked against the wind. His 3 eyes rolled in disgust as he watched the crude display screens flicker and spark. These humans could barely manage atmospheric flight, let alone pose any threat to the mighty Galactic Council. The year was 2157 by human counting, though the galaxy measured time differently. Earth had been discovered 40 years ago when their first clumsy radio signals reached civilized space. Since then, the Council had watched with mild amusement as humanity stumbled through their early space age. They had managed to reach their moon and establish a few orbital stations, but nothing impressive. Nothing that suggested they would ever amount to more than another minor species requiring guidance. Maya Torres waited at the landing facility, her nervous energy barely contained. She had been chosen to represent Earth's scientific community to the visiting delegation, though she wondered if that was wise. The aliens didn't know about the underground laboratories. They didn't know about the quantum computers hidden beneath Antarctica or the dimensional research facility on the dark side of the moon. They saw only what humanity wanted them to see. "Welcome to Earth," Maya said as Krell emerged from the shuttle. The ambassador stood nearly 8 feet tall, his blue-scaled skin gleaming in the sunlight. His species, the Vorth, had ruled their sector of space for 3,000 years. They considered themselves patient teachers of younger races. "Your world is smaller than I expected," Krell replied, his voice carrying the authority of ages. "Our sensors indicate you have achieved basic fusion technology. Primitive but adequate for your current needs," Maya smiled and nodded. The fusion reactors were indeed primitive by galactic standards, but they served their purpose. They powered the cities while the real energy source remained hidden. Deep beneath the ocean floor, humanity had built reactors that tapped directly into zero-point energy. The aliens didn't need to know about those. "We would be honored to show you our achievements," Maya said, leading Krell toward the waiting transport. "Though I fear you may find them quite basic compared to your advanced civilization." The transport was another deliberate deception. It moved on wheels and burned hydrogen fuel, looking like something from humanity's industrial age. Krell barely glanced at it, confirming what Maya had hoped. The aliens saw what they expected to see. They didn't notice the quantum processors built into the transport's frame or the gravitational sensors that mapped every molecule of matter within a kilometer radius. During the journey to the research center, Maya pointed out various human achievements. Solar collectors that seemed inefficient but actually fed power into hidden networks. Communication towers that appeared to use radio waves but secretly transmitted data through quantum entanglement. Agricultural zones that looked primitive but produced food using techniques that surpassed anything in galactic records. "Your species shows promise," Krell said, though his tone suggested he was being polite. "With proper guidance, you might achieve interstellar travel within a few centuries," Maya bit back her response. Humanity had already achieved interstellar travel. The colony ship Horizon had launched 6 months ago, using engines that folded. Space itself? But the aliens didn't know that. They thought humans were still struggling with chemical rockets and primitive ion drives. The research center looked exactly as Maya had planned. Clean but simple, with equipment that seemed advanced by human standards but laughably primitive by galactic ones. She led Krell through laboratories where human scientists worked on projects that appeared to be basic genetic research and elementary materials science. "We have made some progress in understanding biological adaptation," Maya explained, showing Krell a display of modified organisms. "These bacteria can survive in various environments by changing their cellular structure." What she didn't mention was that these bacteria were the foundation of humanity's greatest breakthrough. They could be programmed to build any structure imaginable, from computer processors to spacecraft hulls. The aliens saw simple biology. They missed the fact that humanity had essentially solved the problem of manufacturing anything, anywhere, using only basic organic materials. Krell examined the bacteria with mild interest. "Interesting but limited." Your species lacks the understanding of quantum biology that allows true environmental adaptation. Perhaps in time, with our guidance, you might develop more sophisticated techniques. Maya nodded respectfully while mentally calculating how long it would take her bacteria to disassemble Krell's shuttle and rebuild it as a more advanced vessel. The answer was approximately 6 hours. Though she had no intention of demonstrating that capability, the tour continued through the afternoon. Maya showed Krell computers that seemed to use silicon chips but actually ran on quantum processors smaller than atoms. She demonstrated communication systems that appeared to use electromagnetic waves but secretly transmitted information through dimensions that folded space and time. She presented transportation technology that looked like magnetic levitation, but actually manipulated gravitational fields. Every human achievement was carefully disguised to appear less advanced than it actually was. The deception wasn't born of fear, but of strategy. Humanity had learned early that the galaxy was not a peaceful place. Species that showed too much promise too quickly often found themselves conquered or destroyed. Better to appear harmless. Until ready to defend themselves. As evening approached, Krell prepared to return to his shuttle. He had seen enough to complete his report. Earth would be classified as a developing world, suitable for eventual membership in the galactic community, but requiring several more centuries of growth. The humans showed promise but posed no immediate threat to the established order. Your species has achieved more than I expected, Krell told Maya as they stood beside his shuttle. We will include Earth in our next expansion of guided development programs. With our help, your children might see the day when humanity joins the galactic community. Maya smiled and bowed respectfully. We are honored by your consideration. Humanity looks forward to learning from your wisdom. As Krell's shuttle lifted off, Maya watched it disappear into the night sky. She touched the communication device, hidden in her collar, sending a coded message to facilities around the world. The inspection was complete. The aliens had seen nothing of importance. Humanity's greatest secret remained safe. The secret was not their technology, impressive as it was. The secret was their nature. While other species had grown comfortable with their achievements, humanity had never stopped pushing forward. They adapted, they innovated, they found new solutions to problems that others considered impossible. The galaxy had never seen anything like them, and by the time they realized what humanity truly was, it would be too late to stop them. Maya smiled as she walked back to the research center. Tomorrow, she would return to her real work, developing technologies that would change the galaxy forever. Tonight, she was content knowing that humanity's greatest weapon remained hidden. Their enemies still thought they were dealing with a primitive species taking its first steps into space. They had no idea that humanity was already running toward the stars. The colony of New Terra had been humanity's best-kept secret for 2 years. Hidden in the Kepler 442 system, it served as both a research outpost and a testing ground for technologies that could never be revealed on Earth. Lisa Park had volunteered to command the colony's defense force, though everyone expected it to be a peaceful assignment. The galaxy's major powers were too busy with their own conflicts to notice one small human settlement. That assumption died when the hegemony warships dropped out of hyperspace above the colony. 5 cruisers and a dreadnought, reported Tom Harris. From the sensor station, they're broadcasting a surrender demand on all frequencies. Lisa studied the tactical display from the command center buried deep beneath New Terra's surface. The hegemony ships were massive, each one capable of destroying a small moon. Their energy weapons could vaporize anything in orbit, and their ground forces were legendary for their efficiency. By all conventional wisdom, the colony should surrender immediately. Send a response, Lisa ordered. Tell them we need time to evacuate civilians. The response came from Captain Rex, commander of the hegemony fleet. His voice carried the arrogance of a species that had conquered 17 star systems in the past century. You have 1 hour to prepare your surface for occupation. Any resistance will be met with total destruction, Lisa smiled grimly. The hegemony had made their first mistake. They assumed humanity would fight like every other species they had encountered. They expected conventional weapons, traditional tactics, and predictable responses. They were about to learn that humanity had developed a very different approach to warfare. "Activate the learning protocols," Lisa commanded. Old defensive systems are now in adaptive mode. Across the colony, hidden installations came online. The hegemony had detected the obvious defenses, a few missile batteries and energy shields. That looked impressive, but were actually decoys. They had no idea that every building, every piece of equipment, even the ground itself, had been designed as part of an integrated defense network. The first attack came exactly 1 hour later. Hegemony ground troops landed in dropships, expecting to face desperate colonists armed with primitive weapons. Instead, they found themselves in a landscape that seemed to shift and change around them. Roads that had been straight became twisted. Mazes, buildings that appeared empty suddenly erupted with defensive fire from angles that should have been impossible. The colonists had spent 2 years studying every piece of hegemony technology they could acquire. They knew how their weapons worked, how their armor functioned, how their tactics evolved. Now that knowledge was being put to use in ways the hegemony had never imagined. Tom Harris coordinated the defense from his position in the command center. "Their plasma rifles are losing effectiveness," he reported. "The adaptive armor is learning to disperse the energy. Estimated reduction in weapon efficiency is 30% and climbing." The adaptive armor was humanity's first public demonstration of their true capabilities. Each suit contained millions of microscopic processors that analyzed incoming attacks and adjusted the suit's properties in real time. Energy weapons found their target suddenly reflective. Kinetic weapons discovered their target had become soft and yielding absorbing impacts that should have been fatal, but the armor was just the beginning. The colonists themselves were using tactics that confused and frustrated the hegemony forces. Instead of holding fixed positions, they flowed like water around enemy formations. Instead of matching firepower with firepower, they used the environment itself as a weapon. Lisa watched the battle unfold from multiple perspectives. Hidden sensors throughout the colony provided real-time data on every enemy movement. The information was processed by quantum computers that could predict hegemony actions before they happened. It was like playing chess against an opponent who could only see one move ahead. "Their commander is adapting," Tom warned. "Captain Rex is changing tactics, trying to counter our responses." "Good," Lisa replied. "Let him adapt. Every change he makes gives us more data to work with." The battle continued for 6 hours. The hegemony forces, despite their superior numbers and firepower, found themselves being slowly pushed back. Every time they developed a counter to human tactics, the humans evolved new approaches. Weapons that worked in the first hour became useless by the third. Tactics that seemed successful were turned against their users by the fifth. Captain Rex grew increasingly frustrated as his forces reported impossible situations. Humans were appearing in places they couldn't reach, using weapons that shouldn't exist, and demonstrating coordination that defied explanation. His troops were being defeated not by superior firepower, but by superior thinking. "How are they doing this?" Rex demanded over the communication channel. "These are primitive colonists. They shouldn't have technology that can adapt to our weapons." Lisa opened a direct channel to the hegemony commander. "Captain Rex, this is Commander Lisa. Park, I believe you're experiencing some difficulties with your invasion plans." "Surrender now and we will show mercy," Rex replied, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "You cannot hope to defeat a full hegemony battle group." "Actually, we can," Lisa said calmly. "Your forces are operating at 40% effectiveness and declining. Our defensive systems are improving every minute. If you continue this assault, you will lose your entire landing force within 2 hours." Rex cut the communication and ordered his orbital ships to begin bombardment. The massive energy beams that should have vaporized the colony's surface instead met with a surprise. The colonists had spent months preparing for this moment, building a network of energy redirectors that could channel and disperse even the most powerful weapons. The bombardment energy was captured, converted, and fed into the colony's own defensive systems. The hegemony found themselves literally powering their enemies' resistance. Every shot they fired made the human defenses stronger. After 8 hours of combat, Captain Rex made the decision that would change galactic history. He ordered his forces to withdraw. A hegemony fleet, one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy, was retreating from a small human colony that shouldn't have been able to defend itself against a single cruiser. As the hegemony ships jumped to hyperspace, Lisa opened communications with Earth. "This is New Terra. The test is complete. All systems performed beyond expectations. The galaxy now knows that humanity can defend itself." The news of the battle spread through galactic communication networks within days. The hegemony tried to suppress the information, but too many species had been monitoring the conflict. Word spread that humans had defeated a superior force through adaptation and innovation rather than superior firepower. Other species began to reassess their assumptions about humanity. The quiet little civilization that had seemed so harmless was clearly more dangerous than anyone had realized. Intelligence agencies throughout the galaxy began demanding new assessments of human capabilities. On Earth, the successful defense of New Terra triggered protocols that had been planned for years. The various human governments began the process of true unification, not through conquest, but through recognition of shared purpose. The galaxy had noticed humanity, and it was time to be ready for whatever came next. Lisa remained at New Terra, now serving as the first line of defense for human space. She knew the battle had been just the beginning. The galaxy's major powers would not ignore the implications of what had happened. Humanity had revealed its hand, and now they would have to be ready for the consequences. The colonists continued their work, but now with a new understanding of their role in human history. They were no longer just scientists and farmers building a new world. They were the first soldiers in a conflict that would determine humanity's place in the galaxy. The universe had finally seen what humans could do when pressed to defend themselves, and there was no going back. The Galactic Council chamber had not seen such chaos in 500 years. Representatives from dozens of species shouted accusations and demands while emergency sessions were called and canceled within minutes. The cause of the turmoil was a simple data packet that had arrived through normal communication channels, but its contents had shattered everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. Admiral Wei Chun appeared on the main display, her image transmitted from a location that should not have existed. Behind her, the bridge of a starship showed technology that was clearly human in origin, but advanced beyond anything the galaxy had seen from Earth. The most disturbing detail was the star field visible through the ship's windows, showing constellations. That placed the vessel far outside known human territory. "Greetings to the Galactic Council," Wei Chun said, her voice calm despite the chaos her message was causing. "I am Admiral Wei Chun of the United Earth Fleet. I bring greetings from the 37 human colonies and research stations currently operating throughout this sector of space." Councillor Thane of the Republic felt his blood freeze. 37 colonies. The intelligence reports had indicated humans had barely managed to establish one small outpost. Even that single colony had proved more dangerous than expected, but 37 settlements suggested a level of expansion that should have been impossible. Furthermore, Wei Chun continued, I am authorized to inform the Council that humanity is prepared to take its place as a full member of the galactic community. We have developed technologies and capabilities that we believe will be beneficial to all species. The transmission shifted to show views from various human installations, orbital stations around gas giants that harvested energy on a massive scale, research facilities built into asteroids that seemed to be studying the fundamental structure of space itself, colony ships that looked nothing like the crude vessels the galaxy had observed, their hulls gleaming with materials that seemed to bend light itself. Dr. Marcus Thompson appeared on the display, speaking from what appeared to be a laboratory built inside a hollow moon. We have achieved breakthroughs in faster-than-light communication that allow instant coordination across any distance. We have developed manufacturing techniques that can build anything we need from basic elements. Most importantly, we have learned to adapt our technology to any environment or challenge." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Then the questions began, shouted by representatives who could barely contain their panic. How long had humans been expanding? How had they hidden their true capabilities? What else were they concealing? Ambassador Krell sat in his designated seat, his three eyes staring at the empty display. He remembered his visit to Earth, the carefully guided tour that had shown him nothing but primitive technology. Every human achievement had been deliberately disguised to appear less advanced than it actually was. The deception had been perfect, so complete that no one had suspected the truth. "We demand immediate clarification," announced Counselor Vex of the Dominion. "Human expansion violates multiple galactic treaties. Their hidden colonies constitute an act of aggression against established territorial boundaries." The response came not from the display but from the council chamber itself. A section of the wall seemed to shimmer and fold, revealing a passage that had not existed moments before. Through it stepped a human woman in a simple gray uniform, her presence causing security systems to activate and then mysteriously shut down. "I am Dr. Rachel Kim," she said, walking calmly to the center of the chamber. "I represent humanity's diplomatic corps. I am here to address your concerns and to clarify certain misconceptions about our activities." The security breach was impossible. The council chamber was protected by the most advanced technology in the galaxy. No one could simply walk through its walls, yet this human woman had done exactly that. The implications were terrifying. "How did you enter this facility?" demanded Counselor Thane, his voice shaking with either anger or fear. "We have developed techniques for manipulating dimensional space," Dr. Kim replied. "Your security systems are designed to detect conventional intrusion methods. They were not prepared for someone who could step through folded space." She gestured, and the air in the chamber seemed to ripple. Through the distortion, the council members could see other human installations, research facilities that existed in parallel dimensions, manufacturing centers that built ships and equipment in spaces that were somehow separate from normal reality. A network of human activity that had been completely invisible to galactic sensors. "We have been expanding for 10 years, Dr. Kim continued. Not through conquest or aggression, but through exploration and development. Every human installation has been built in unclaimed space or in dimensions that were previously inaccessible. The revelation that humans could manipulate dimensional space was perhaps the most shocking development yet. The ability to fold space and create passages between distant locations was theoretical technology that even the most advanced species had never achieved. If humans had mastered it, they possessed capabilities that could revolutionize galactic civilization. "Your expansion violates the territorial agreements," Counselor Vex insisted. "No species may claim more than 12 star systems without council approval." "We have not claimed any star systems," Dr. Kim replied. "We have established research stations and colonies in dimensional spaces that exist parallel to normal space. These locations do not interfere with existing territorial boundaries, because they exist in different layers of reality." The concept was difficult for the council members to grasp. Humans had apparently found a way to expand without competing for the same resources that other species fought over. They had created their own territory in dimensions that no one else could access. "We wish to share these technologies with the galactic community," Dr. Kim announced. "Dimensional manipulation could provide unlimited living space for all species. Faster-than-light communication could connect every world instantaneously. Adaptive manufacturing could end scarcity throughout the galaxy." The offer was tempting, but the council members were not naive. They understood that whoever controlled such technologies would dominate galactic civilization. The question was whether humanity intended to use their advantages for cooperation or conquest. "What assurances can you provide that humans will not use these technologies for aggressive expansion?" asked Counselor Thane. "None," Dr. Kim replied honestly. We cannot provide assurances because we do not know what the future will bring. What we can offer is partnership. Work with us to develop these technologies for the benefit of all species. The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives demanded immediate action to contain the human threat. Others argued for negotiation and cooperation. A few species quietly calculated whether they could acquire human technology through trade or espionage. Dr. Kim waited patiently for the noise to subside. When it did, she made her final statement. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. You can choose to see humanity as a threat to be contained or as a partner in building a better future. But understand this, the choice is yours to make now. Wait too long, and you may find that the opportunity for partnership has passed. She gestured again, and the dimensional portal reopened. As she stepped through it, she left behind a chamber full of representatives who finally understood what they were dealing with. Humanity was not a developing species that could be guided and controlled. They were a fully mature civilization that had been hiding their true capabilities until they were ready to reveal them. The galaxy had been watching Earth for 40 years, assuming they were observing a primitive species taking its first steps into space. In reality, they had been watching a carefully orchestrated deception that had allowed humanity to expand and develop far beyond what anyone had imagined possible. The revelation changed everything. The established order of galactic civilization was built on the assumption that technological development was slow and predictable. Humans had shown that assumption was wrong. They had leaped ahead by centuries in just a few decades, and they had done it without anyone noticing. The council session continued for hours, but the real decisions were being made in private communications between species leaders. The galaxy was about to be divided into those who would work with humanity and those who would try to stop them. The choice would determine the fate of every species in known space, and everyone knew that time was running out to make the right decision. The Great Alliance fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a storm of metal and fire. 300 warships from 12 different species, representing the combined military might of half the galaxy. They had come to end the human threat before it could grow beyond control. The message was clear: humanity would submit to galactic authority or face extinction. General Maria Santos stood in the command center buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the massive fleet approach Earth's outer defenses. The alien ships were impressive, each one a masterpiece of military engineering. Their combined firepower could devastate entire star systems. Under normal circumstances, any species facing such an armada would surrender immediately. These were not normal circumstances. Enemy fleet is maintaining formation, reported Lieutenant David Park from the sensor station. They're broadcasting surrender demands on all frequencies. Standard ultimatum: submit to galactic authority or face total destruction. Maria studied the tactical display showing the approaching fleet. The aliens had made several assumptions about how this battle would unfold. They expected humanity to meet them with conventional warships in traditional formations. They anticipated energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and tactics that had been used in galactic warfare for thousands of years. They were about to discover that humanity had developed a completely different approach to conflict. Activate the reality anchors, Maria ordered. All stations report readiness for dimensional manipulation. Throughout the Sol system, installations that had been disguised as research stations and asteroid mining facilities revealed their true purpose. They were not weapons in any traditional sense. They were devices that could alter the fundamental properties of space and time within a localized area. The aliens would find themselves fighting not just human ships, but the universe itself. The first phase of the battle began when the Alliance fleet entered the outer system. They expected to encounter defensive satellites and patrol ships. Instead, they found themselves in a region of space where their instruments began reporting impossible readings. Ships that should have been moving in straight lines found their courses curving without explanation. Energy weapons that should have fired in predictable patterns began behaving erratically. Admiral, Koroth of the Alliance fleet demanded explanations from his science officers. What is causing these anomalies? Are the humans using some kind of jamming technology? Unknown, sir, replied his chief scientist. Our instruments are functioning normally, but the readings don't match any known phenomena. It's as if the laws of physics are being selectively modified. That was exactly what was happening. Dr. Kevin Walsh and his team had spent years developing technology that could manipulate quantum fields in ways that changed how matter and energy behaved. The approaching fleet was discovering that human defenders could literally rewrite the rules of reality within their defensive perimeter. The second phase began when Alliance forces tried to engage the human fleet. Earth's defenders had emerged from hiding, but they looked nothing like conventional warships. They were organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow and shift like living creatures. Their hulls were made of programmable matter that could become anything needed at any moment. Captain Susan Miller commanded the experimental ship Prometheus, humanity's first vessel to be controlled by an artificial consciousness network. The ship itself was alive in ways that organic beings could barely comprehend. It could think, adapt, and evolve its capabilities in real time. "Enemy cruiser squadron targeting us," reported the ship's consciousness directly into Susan's mind, analyzing their weapon signatures. Adaptation protocols engaged. The alien cruisers fired their primary weapons, expecting to destroy the strange human vessel. Instead, the energy beam struck a hull that absorbed the attack and used it to power defensive systems. The ship's surface rippled and changed, becoming perfectly reflective to the specific wavelengths being used against it. "Return fire," Susan ordered, though the command was unnecessary. The ship was already responding, its weapon systems adapting to exploit weaknesses in the alien vessels that had been identified in microseconds of combat. The Alliance fleet found itself facing opponents that learned and adapted faster than any biological crew could match. Human ships that were damaged by alien weapons analyzed the attack and developed countermeasures before the next salvo arrived. Tactics that worked in the first minute of combat became useless by the second minute, but the real shock came when the Alliance forces discovered that individual human ships were sharing information instantaneously across the entire fleet. Every lesson learned by one vessel was immediately available to all others. The humans were not fighting as separate ships, but as a single, vast intelligence that could coordinate actions across light years without any delay. "Their coordination is impossible," Admiral Koroth told his staff. "No communication system can work that fast across such distances." "Sir," his science officer replied, "we're detecting quantum entanglement patterns that suggest they're using consciousness itself as a communication medium. They're not sending signals between ships. They're sharing thoughts." The third phase of the battle began when the Alliance fleet tried to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. They concentrated their firepower on individual targets, hoping to destroy human ships faster than they could adapt. The strategy failed when they discovered that human vessels could merge and separate at will. Combining their capabilities when facing overwhelming odds, the Prometheus joined with two other ships to form a single entity with the combined intelligence and firepower of all three. The merged vessel demonstrated capabilities that terrified the Alliance commanders. It could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making it impossible to target effectively. It could manipulate time itself, causing enemy attacks to arrive before they were fired or after they had already been countered. "This is impossible," Admiral Koroth muttered as he watched his fleet being systematically dismantled by enemies who seemed to violate every law of physics and military strategy. The fourth phase came when the Alliance fleet realized they were losing. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries were being defeated by human vessels that thought faster than biological minds could follow. The aliens tried to retreat, but found that human ships could manipulate space itself to prevent escape. "We surrender?" Admiral Koroth broadcast on all frequencies. "The Alliance fleet surrenders. We request immediate cessation of hostilities." The human response came from General Santos herself, transmitted directly to the Alliance flagship. "Surrender accepted. Your fleet will be escorted to safe distance from Earth. Your crews will be treated with respect and returned to their home systems. The battle ended not with the destruction of the Alliance fleet, but with a demonstration of human mercy. The aliens had come to destroy humanity, but humans responded by showing that they could win without becoming conquerors. The message was clear: humanity was powerful enough to defeat any enemy, but chose cooperation over domination. As the Alliance fleet limped away from Earth, their commanders knew that everything had changed. The galaxy's established order was broken. The species that had ruled space for millennia had been defeated by newcomers who had been underestimated and ignored. But, perhaps most importantly, humanity had shown that their greatest strength was not their technology or their military might. It was their ability to remain human even when possessing the power to reshape reality itself. They had won the greatest battle in galactic history, and they had done it while maintaining their principles of cooperation and respect for other life. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of human expansion had begun, and it would be built not on conquest, but on the revolutionary idea that different species could work together to achieve things that none of them could accomplish alone. The reckoning was complete, and humanity had passed the test of power with their humanity intact. 1 year after the Great Alliance fleet had limped away from Earth in defeat, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The ancient power structures that had governed interstellar civilization for thousands of years had crumbled, replaced by something that had never been seen before. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. Dr. Rachel Kim stood before the newly constructed Galactic Assembly, addressing representatives from over 200 species. The assembly hall itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built using techniques contributed by dozens of different civilizations. It existed in a pocket dimension that allowed beings from any environment to participate without life support systems. Today marks the first anniversary of the Cooperative Development Initiative, Rachel announced to the gathering. In 12 months, we have achieved more scientific advancement than the galaxy saw in the previous century. We have ended 3 territorial wars, solved the energy crisis for 47 worlds, and established the framework for true interspecies cooperation. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through military force, but had revolutionized it through the simple act of sharing knowledge. The technologies that had seemed impossible when humans first revealed them were now being adapted and improved by species throughout known space. President James Peterson of the United Earth Federation watched the proceedings from his office in Geneva. The man who had once led a single planet now found himself at the center of a galactic transformation. The role had grown beyond anything he had imagined when he first took office. The Madagascar project is ready for final approval, reported his advisor, Dr. Lisa Chang. 17 species have contributed to the terraforming technology. The dead world will support life within 6 months. The Madagascar project was typical of how the galaxy now operated. Instead of one species claiming and developing a world, multiple civilizations worked together to create something that benefited everyone. The techniques being used would eventually be applied to thousands of worlds, creating living space for species that had been facing extinction due to overpopulation. Not everyone had embraced the new order. The hierarchy, one of the oldest and most rigid civilizations in the galaxy, had refused to participate in cooperative projects. They maintained their traditional territories and continued to operate under the assumption that strength came from domination rather than cooperation. The hierarchy is experiencing significant internal problems, reported Ambassador Wilson during the daily briefing. Their subject species are requesting admission to the cooperative. Several worlds have declared independence and asked for human assistance in establishing self-governance. The situation was delicate. Humanity had the power to simply take over the hierarchy's territory, but that would violate the principles that had guided the new order. Instead, they offered support to any species that chose to leave the hierarchy voluntarily, while respecting the decision of those who chose to remain. We will not force change, President Peterson decided. But we will support any species that chooses freedom over domination. The principle had been tested repeatedly over the past year. The hegemony, the same species that had attacked the first human colony, had eventually requested membership in the cooperative. Their military strength had become irrelevant in a galaxy where cooperation produced better results than conquest. Captain Susan Miller, now commanding an entire fleet of consciousness-linked vessels, patrolled the borders between cooperative space and the few remaining holdout civilizations. Her ships served not as weapons of war but as mobile research stations that could assist any species requesting help. "We have a situation in the Rigel sector," she reported during the weekly fleet briefing. "The synthesis has made contact with a previously unknown species. They appear to be requesting assistance with a planetary ecological crisis." The synthesis represented another success story of the New Order. Once a rigid hierarchical society, they had embraced cooperative principles and experienced rapid advancement in both technology and social development. They now served as ambassadors to newly discovered species, helping them integrate into galactic civilization. "Send the biological adaptation team," Susan ordered. "Full cooperation protocols. Let's see what we can learn from each other." The approach to first contact had been revolutionized by human principles. Instead of attempting to impose galactic civilization on new species, the cooperative offered partnership and mutual development. The results had been extraordinary. 12 new species had joined the galactic community in the past year, each bringing unique perspectives and capabilities. Back on Earth, the changes were equally dramatic. The planet that had once been dismissed as a backwater world now served as the hub of galactic civilization, not because humans had conquered anyone, but because they had proven that cooperation produced better results than competition. Maya Torres, the scientist who had once deceived Ambassador Krell, now led the Galactic Research Consortium. Her laboratories hosted researchers from dozens of species, working on projects that would have been impossible under the old system of territorial competition. "We've achieved a breakthrough in consciousness transfer," she announced during the LATST research briefing. "The technique allows any species to share experiences and knowledge directly. We could be looking at the end of misunderstanding between different forms of life." The implications were staggering. If beings could truly understand each other at the level of consciousness itself, the barriers between species would become meaningless. The galaxy could become a single, vast intelligence while still preserving the unique characteristics of each civilization. Ambassador Krell arrived at Earth's orbital station aboard a ship that bore little resemblance to the crewed shuttle he had used 3 years earlier. The vessel was a joint project between his species and humanity, incorporating technologies that neither could have developed alone. His mission was to formally apologize for the Dominion's initial assessment of human capabilities. "I have been authorized to speak for the Dominion Council," Krell announced as he met with human representatives. "We recognize that our previous evaluation of humanity was fundamentally flawed. We wish to formally request admission to the Cooperative Development Initiative." The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species that had once considered humanity too primitive to notice was now requesting permission to join the civilization that humans had created. The transformation was complete. "The Dominion has always been welcome to join," replied Dr. Rachel Kim. "We believe that your species' experience with long-term planning will be valuable to our cooperative efforts." The meeting represented more than just another species joining the cooperative. It symbolized the complete reversal of galactic power structures. The old order, based on dominance and territorial control, had been replaced by a new system based on mutual benefit and shared development. As the year drew to a close, the changes continued to accelerate. The cooperative had established research stations in 17 galaxies, working with species that had never been contacted by the old galactic powers. Trade routes that had once been controlled by military force were now open to any species willing to participate in cooperative development. The quantum communication network that Dr. Marcus Thompson had demonstrated now connected every world in cooperative space. Information, ideas, and discoveries spread instantaneously across vast distances. A breakthrough on one world immediately became available to researchers throughout the galaxy. We've essentially created a galactic brain, Thompson explained during a presentation to the assembly. Every species contributes their unique perspective to solving problems. The result is innovation at a pace that would have been impossible under the old system. But perhaps the most significant change was in how species viewed each other. The competitive mindset that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia was being replaced by a cooperative approach that produced better results for everyone involved. General Maria Santos, now serving as Director of Galactic Defense, addressed the Assembly's final session of the year. We have achieved something that was considered impossible just 2 years ago. We have created a galactic civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest. We have shown that strength comes not from dominating others, but from working together. The statistics supported her statement. Conflicts between species had decreased by 90%. Scientific advancement had accelerated by orders of magnitude. Standards of living had improved for every species that had joined the cooperative. The galaxy has learned that humanity's greatest weapon was never our technology, Maria continued. It was our refusal to accept that things had to remain as they were. We looked at a galaxy divided by competition and chose to build something better. As the assembly session ended, representatives from hundreds of species returned to their home worlds, carrying plans for projects that would reshape entire sectors of space. The old galaxy of territorial boundaries and competitive expansion was becoming a memory. In its place, a new civilization was emerging based on principles that humanity had demonstrated through example rather than force. The final irony was that humanity had achieved galactic dominance by refusing to dominate anyone. They had won the greatest victory in galactic history by proving that cooperation produced better results than conquest. The species that had been dismissed as primitive had taught the galaxy a lesson in civilization that would echo through the ages. Ambassador Krell stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, looking down at Earth, the planet that had once seemed insignificant. Now served as the heart of a new galactic order. The changes that had begun with humanity's quiet development had transformed everything. "Your species has accomplished something remarkable," he said to Dr. Kim as she joined him at the observation window. "You have changed the galaxy without destroying what came before." Rachel smiled as she watched the ships of a dozen different species working together in Earth's orbital space. That was always the plan. We never wanted to conquer the galaxy. We wanted to improve it. The galaxy had indeed been improved. The old system of territorial competition and military dominance had been replaced by cooperative development that benefited everyone. Humanity had risen from obscurity to galactic prominence not through conquest, but through the revolutionary idea that different species could work together to achieve things that none of them could accomplish alone. The title of the story had proven prophetic. The galaxy had never seen Earth's rise because humans had chosen to develop in ways that the established powers couldn't recognize or understand. By the time they realized what humanity truly was, it was indeed too late to stop them. But stopping them had never been necessary because humanity had chosen to lift everyone up rather than tear others down. The new order was secure, built on foundations of cooperation and mutual respect that would endure for generations to come. The galaxy had been transformed, and it would never be the same again.